Hello, and welcome to this MVPDays presentation, Overcoming Application Delivery Challenges with MSIX App Attach. My name is Ryan Mangan. So just to get started, I've been in the EUC industry for 15 plus years and focused on desktops, VDI, EUC in general. I have a blog, Ryan Mangan's IT blog, which has got lots of content on Windows Virtual Desktop, remote desktop services and VMware. Before we start the presentation, just kind of quickly show the disclaimer. We've basically done our very best to ensure that all the information is correct. So, just to kind of set the scene, previously or traditionally we would go out and buy servers, networking, software, and build, a solution, a VDI solution specifically. And that takes a bit of time to acquire, procure all this hardware, build it all and set it all up. And with the adoption of cloud, this has sped up that process. We can use a web browser most of the time to deploy services into a cloud subscription or tenant or instance. And that's great because we can now do things much quicker. However, we build out this brand new shiny environment, but we're still sat with the same challenge we were before. We get to the end game of installing new infrastructure, but we're then sat with all these applications we can't move. And we've only realized or we've thought about these applications at the end. And this is quite a common thing. Some organizations don't realize the applications they don't have, and where they sit and how they work. Or someone's moved on. The person who used to work there knew all about the application doesn't work there anymore. And this can be quite complicated and frustrating when you get into the higher number of applications. So then when we look at the challenges with a VDI environment or desktops, you've got things like image management. So if you've got a large number of images in your organization, they all need managing and maintaining. How do you ensure that they're updated? How do you, what happens if there's image corruption? Do you have to build that image again? Can you automatically template out again? All of these challenges have an impact on time and resource. And then things like app layering, which did help improve that, still today has challenges of its own, where it can take 8 days a month to do all the layers again. It's not really as efficient as it could be. And then you've also got things like app sprawl as well, where images are just getting updated and old ones are not getting removed or being missed, and that creates a weaker image as we go on. So moving to kind of looking back in time at applications, just to build a bit of context around all of this. If you look here, I've got a number of images showing previous versions of Windows and Windows 10 at the bottom right hand side. As we go down the versions of operating system through time, when we get to Windows 95 and Windows 98, some of them applications on these two operating systems still are in use today. Some go back to 2000. When Windows Vista was introduced, we found a big change where they changed document and settings to users and program data. And this obviously had an impact to applications. And then obviously with Windows 10, 16-bit on 64-bit version is not supported and doesn't work. So you can't use 16-bit applications on Windows 10. Natively, that is. There is ways and means of doing that, but it creates a complication. And then when we look at the challenges when we're looking at migration today, things like compatibility on newer operating systems, there might be installation gates, 16-bit applications which you can't get over. Clock speeds is another one for the older applications where you've got to deal with that clock speed. Things like missing DLLs, which are associated with the operating system change and then DLLs don't exist anymore, or it's looking in the wrong area because of the change in the version of the OS. UAC, the introduction for the user access control. And then another one which is quite sometimes amusing is the dongle. You sometimes find the old application still requiring a dongle to run today. And then moving on to looking at some of the application delivery options out there today, we've got things like the traditional install, going around installing apps manually. PDQ deploy and system center configuration manager, kind of mass deployment through AD groups. Image deployment, so just blanket rolling out a new image on top of the OS, which can have an impact to the disk itself, if you do that quite often. App layering and app streaming. So you've got things like, you know, the Citrix app layering capabilities and, you know, MSIX cloud paging technology. You've got Chocolatey's script-based kind of installation as well now that is becoming popular. Then we've also got the last three, which is the Microsoft kind of components, which is like Microsoft Store, which allows you to download MSIXs onto install into the operating system from the store, as well as do the offline of downloading the files so you can repackage and distribute out centrally. Winget, similar to Chocolatey, there's currently a Microsoft central repository where you can access some of the applications from there. And then finally, we've got the improvements or the additional functionality of MSIX within MSIX App Attach. So when we're taking a look at MSIX App Attach, first we need to understand the basics of MSIX. So what is MSIX? MSIX has been around since 2018, and the previous was Apex, which you'll probably remember from Windows 8. A lot of people complained about, you know, trying to clean up Apexes, and these reside in the Program Files Windows Apps folder. Essentially, an MSIX is a bunch of files in a zip. The manifest, it basically controls the functions of the MSIX, and the MSIX is effectively a container. So when an application is running in an MSIX form, it's running in container, and essentially it has read access, global read access to the system, but not write. So what that enables you to do is basically isolate your applications much better than installing them natively. We'll get on to obviously some of the benefits shortly for the container, but I just wanted to kind of cover off a few more points. A bit like the MSIX package itself, you'll notice that the VFS folder is similar to AppV. It is effectively the bigger brother of that version. And MSIX uses native APIs of the operating system. So it's not going out using agents or anything like that. It's using built-in OS APIs to kind of run them applications. And it supports both x86 and 64-bit applications. Point to note though, I always mention this before and after, if you are using self-assigned certificates with MSIX, you need to ensure that you have installed that certificate on the device in question. So if it's a laptop or if it is you know, VDI environment, you've rolled out that certificate to all of the required session hosts of physical devices or virtual devices. So taking a look at the MSIX container itself, what we have is two distinct areas. We have the package payload, which is the application files, and then the footprint files. The application files are self-explanatory, but the footprint files, the app manifest, like I said, is the brain of the operation. It has all the configuration of how the application should work and run. Things like firewall rules, file extensions, etc. can go into there. You've then got the app block map file, which we'll cover shortly, and then if it has been signed, the app signature file in there as well. You may see registry and user data within this as well. And you can see that in here. So what I've done is I've taken a MSIX and changed the extension to a .zip, and you can see that there's registry DAT, user DATs, as well as the kind of core things like the VFS and the Apex manifest. So what can you package with an MSIX? That's a good question to ask. Files, registry, services, URL protocols, file associations, and fonts. And you can even create font packages on their own and install them to users on your networks. Then briefly, just to cover Package Support Framework, which is an open source thing from Microsoft. Essentially, if an application doesn't work, and we'll cover compatibility shortly, you may need to use a shim, which is effectively a PSF launcher, which uses a configuration file in JSON format to fix an application which isn't running. That you know, it might be runtime fix-ups, it could be other DLL fix-ups, or registry, so on and so forth. You can even use PowerShell to kind of carry out some fix-ups. Point to note, the PSF Package Support Framework should be used as a last resort really, rather than as a standard thing, because it does impact the speed of launch time of the application as it is in front of the application. It's an application launching an application. So now I've kind of given you an insight into MSIX, just kind of whittle off a few key features. The first one is Microsoft suggests or state claim 99.9% success guaranteed install rate of an MSIX. So because it's in container form and it's not etched into the native OS itself, the registry and things, doesn't produce win rot, which is a benefit because some of the kind of slowdown of devices is based on win rot. Files left over, remnants of uninstalled applications or older applications. Network bandwidth optimization, it uses the app block map file, XML even, on a 64K block to transfer, which basically speeds up, or improves downloading. Disk optimization, it can basically access files across apps, and basically they still remain independent of each other. So it kind of reduces the size a little bit. And then success rate. So some claim 90, some claim 20, some claim 60. Truth of it is, you need to use multiple different techniques with applications, packaging techniques to kind of achieve a higher success rate. A lot of the third parties today are achieving high success rates, whereas the Microsoft packaging tool, the MSIX packaging tool, is suggested to have around 40 to 60. I've seen higher rates, but that depends on the applications you're trying to capture. The larger complex applications have a few more challenges than the smaller applications, naturally. There has been reports of some organisations who have a plus 90% portfolio of MSIXs within their organisation. So the point to make really here is success rate is based on the application and the techniques used to get them applications onto the latest operating system. So what we're going to do is cover a quick demo of creating an MSIX package using the MSIX packaging tool. So what you can see here is I already installed the MSIX packaging tool. I'm then going to click application package on the left hand side, create that package. I'm then going to wait for it to do its checks, make sure the packaging tool driver is working, and then disable the search for Windows. And then I'll select the installer, and today we're going to be doing the boring Notepad++ like everybody else does because of time and size. And then as you can see, I've already pre-populated the settings for this tool for this certificate. Enter in the details, the version and the package description. And once you've done that, we can then progress on to the next. Let's give it a quick note there, call it test out. And click next. And then we go through the process like most, application packaging tools like FinApp, and we'll just run the installer or at volumes. Similar sort of process. So we'll install that app. You should really launch the application when you're doing this to make sure it captures everything. And then when you're finished, you can then finalize the capture, as it were. We're going to move on now to the kind of service report, make sure there's nothing else there, and then we're going to create the package. So all we need to do now is make sure we specify the path for the package, and then we're going to click create. Because we've installed this on the same machine, we need to now go into the program files and delete, uninstall the previous, the install we just done, because we want to test this with the MSIX. So I'm just going to remove that quickly. Also, point to note is when you run the MSIX, it won't appear in here. It will appear in the other location, which I'll show. So I'm going to now run the Notepad++, MSIX, and I'm going to click install. As you can see here, the add and remove programs is where an MSIX will reside. I'm just going to show you that now. And we're just going to install that MSIX. And there you can see, we've created a MSIX. So, moving on. What is MSIX App Attach? So MSIX App Attach, I like to describe as a vehicle of delivering MSIXs to a desktop or a VDI environment. It was originally released for WVD initially, but the APIs and the support are supported on any build 2004 onwards. So if you wanted to use MSIX App Attach today, you can do that. And one of the demos I'm showing is actually running on a virtual machine outside of Windows Virtual Desktop. So, what is MSIX App Attach? Well, MSIX App Attach is effectively, a disk or an image of the application extracted, unzipped into like a virtual disk, as simple as that. And it uses the operating system's APIs to register the application to the desktop or the user in question. And people are like, well, why? Because attaching applications rather than installing them is much faster. That's proven, and we'll cover that. Some of the things as well is, compared to other technologies, that it's much faster in the sense it's using the OS's APIs, low packaging overhead, and it can be used outside of Windows Virtual Desktop. And one of the other things is low impact to user sign-in. When we're looking at the formats available today, you can do VHD, VHDX, and SimFS, which is a composite file system. I'm not going to go into too much information about SimFS today. However, you can check out some of the blogs and the information I've produced on that. Some say why use VHDX and why use VHD. Well, VHDX does offer the ability, more functionality from a PowerShell perspective, manipulation, editing. So, it works with all three. It's up to you, your preference. And then what we're going to do now is just take a quick look at the kind of structure of an MSIX image, which is used for MSIX App Attach. So we have the VHD itself, we have the MSIX expanded, and then the app within inside that. The reason why we depict it this way is you can have multiple MSIX applications within one MSIX package. So you can have 3 packages within an MSIX, or you can have, just to make it more complicated, multiple MSIXs on a virtual disk or an MSIX image even. So next I'm going to show you quickly using the community tool, which you can also find from a GitHub, the creation of an MSIX image. So what we have here is a app I've installed from GitHub, downloaded that, which is my MSIX community tool. I'm going to create an MSIX image. So I'm going to select the MSIX, and the one I've already previously created was Foxit Reader. So I'm going to grab that, I'm going to select VHD, and then I'm going to select the image path for where I want it to go. And I'm just going to call that MSIX Foxit, and then save. And then just click create MSIX image. So the kind of Microsoft way of doing it is a lot more steps. So what I've done really is create a tool to kind of really speed up that process. And this only allows you to create one MSIX package within an MSIX image. But there you go, simple as that. If you open that up, you can see that it's unzipped the files and applied all the security permissions, ready for you to then use with MSIX App Attach. I've obviously run that, mounted that, and as you can see, it's attached there as well. Okay. So some of the kind of process terms for MSIX App Attach, we've got expanding, and this is basically taking an MSIX package and then converting it or expanding it into an MSIX image. So basically it's extracting it from its zip and applying the appropriate ACLs to that MSIX package folder structure for it to run properly within MSIX App Attach. Staging is where it notifies the operating system that the package is there, and then registering is actually assigning and running that application for the user. Delayed registration is where you may wish to do it after logon, and then on demand is where you might want to fly, release applications to users while they're in session. And this is quite interesting because MSIX App Attach offers some kind of flexible capability here. User rings the support desk, says I need this application. You can deliver that application to that user while they're in session. You can remove an old application while the user is in session. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility and lower impact to the user. If they need another application there and then, that application can appear during session. Or you may need to do an upgrade, or there's been a serious vulnerability with an application, you need to remove the old and add the other. There's all sorts of abilities and functions you can do for them users by using MSIX App Attach. And then just to kind of make it clear, because there's been quite a bit of confusion, MSIX App Attach is general release. The APIs, the framework for MSIX, the packaging tool, are general release as well. So if you want to use App Attach in terms of, outside of a Windows Virtual Desktop environment, as long as you have the correct third-party tooling or PowerShell, you can do that today. Windows Server 2019 is not supported, but could possibly be available in future versions of the Windows Server OS. Yeah, so if you want to do it on Server 19 today, that's not possible. And then if we look at, I kind of call this like a deconstructed breakdown of MSIX App Attach in process. So so first of all, we've got the gold image, which has the common applications installed on there. When the user logs on, the first thing you get is their user profiles assigned. And the second thing is, depending on what department they're associating the user groups for App Attach, their specific applications were assigned to them users. So what you can do with departmental applications, rather than creating complex filtering rules using FSLogix, you can basically use App Attach to deliver them. You may wish that common applications are not required, and you may wish to attach all them applications onto the user session during session. So let's have a look at a demo of MSIX App Attach in motion. So here I have a desktop booting up, it's logged on, and this is a virtual machine, and you can see there Affinity Photos just attached. I'm just going to go open up disk management. Please note as well, you can't see SimFS using disk management. You have to use the tools which are provided in the wiki, and I'll tell you about that in due course. So I'm just going to run that application, but as you can see here, it's different in the sense it is shown as an MSIX because it's attached as an MSIX using MSIX App Attach. So let's run that. And there you go, we're running this application now. No different really in terms of the experience. It attaches on logon and it runs just like a normal application or an MSIX. The only benefit is it's a faster kind of attachment it is to install it natively. Results, which we'll cover in a minute, actually on that shows the difference between natively installing and attaching. Cool. So performance testing. So staging and registering. As you can see here, we've got I've deliberately put PSF in there and native, so without using the PSF fix-ups. You'll see that we've got MSIX natively, VHD, VHDX, and SIM, and then same again using the PSF as well. And as you can note here, the installation of an MSIX natively is much longer than attaching. So this is a small app, and we can see that on average, under a second, to kind of stage and register two processes, stage and register under. And then looking at installing that MSIX natively, that is up to 2.5 seconds. So as you can see, attaching apps is much faster than installing them, and very useful for something like a VDI environment where you want to add and remove applications specifically on the user requirement. And then when we look at app launch testing, what you can see here, which is quite good, is the difference between using the package support framework and using the MSIX without. So as you can see, SimFS comes out on top here, which offers more better improvements in performance and less resource overhead on the session host, or depending on whatever device you're using. But what you can see here is by using the PSF launcher, there is an impact to be aware of. So some of the delivery options available to you today are PowerShell scripts. I don't recommend using PowerShell for delivering MSIX App Attach. However, it can be done for testing. It is useful for testing. There's AppCure's delivery agent called ADA, which is now available. You can use on physical devices, a Citrix VDI, anything running Windows 10 build 2004. AppVentix, which offers a central management solution and an agent to deliver AppV, MSIX, and MSIX App Attach, and covers all three formats, SimFS included. Then you've got App Volumes, which is using VMware's capabilities to deliver MSIX App Attach using App Volumes 4. And then naturally we've got Windows Virtual Desktop, which currently is in public preview for MSIX App Attach. So some of the community tooling out there today we have. I've produced a wiki which you can find on Ryan Mangan's IT blog under GitHub. So if you search for our MIT blog, MSIX App Attach, you'll find currently about 22 pages of goodliness on MSIX App Attach, and that's from tooling to fixing issues and also to making sure that you set it up correctly. Today, it also includes PowerShell scripting for you to test outside of a Windows virtual environment deployment. And some of the tooling which I haven't shown you today is the SimFS tool. So if you want to test SimFS today outside of WVD, or you want to see more about it, or packaging, and there's a mount and unmount tool as a part of the Microsoft, my MSIX App Attach community tooling tool, which you can find again in the GitHub. And this allows you to mount a sim as a GUID or as a drive letter, as you can see here, which is great if you want to have a look inside of the package itself. And then also for all those who want to find out more about MSIX App Attach, I produced a book called An Introduction into MSIX App Attach, which covers quite a bit of content just to kind of get you started on the subject of MSIX App Attach. And I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to watch my presentation. If you want to find out more, please contact me over Twitter, and there's my handle. GitHub, as I mentioned previously, and also my blog, which you can see the backdrop, which is ryanmangansitblog.com. Again, thank you very much for your time today.